Ladies and gentlemen, throughout January, we heard about Amazon targeting the indie films. So with us, we talk with J.R. Bookwalter. Used to own Tempe Video. Unfortunately, it went out of business and also affected by Amazon pulling not one, but 7 of his films for no particular reason at all, and he's still left in the dark of why they were even pulled to begin with. And also, we dive into the last topic of the night called the evolution of the female leads, which at this point in time was only myself with Ken Artuz from DK Mag, because somewhere between the first topic of talking about Amazon targeting the indie film, Tristan vanished. So we believe he was abducted by aliens and will probably resurface into the world tomorrow, which will be technically January 27th as this is recording, but you are hearing this on January 31st. But we think he got abducted and he's going to be resurfacing in the state of California. But without further ado, this is our end of the month discussion. Enjoy. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode. Well, this is more like an end of the month episode for the Everything Horror podcast. And like always, I'm Paul Dolsky. And tonight I'm also joined with Tristan Knott from the Everything Horror podcast. And joining me are always is Ken Artuz from the badassery of DK Mag, who always outschooled us here at Everything Horror, but that's okay. And then also for the first topic tonight, we got a really cool guest who not so cool of what happened within the Amazon targeting indies, but more about that in a few minutes. But we got some really cool topics. We got this Amazon targeting indie. We also got, of course, the non-stop talking of reboots because they just need to goddamn stop. And finally, we're going to end it with the evolution of female leads. And that's a pretty cool topic, too. I can't wait for all of them tonight. But joining us as a special guest is none other than the former owner of Tempe Videos, J.R. Bookwalter. I hope I said your last name
Hello.
right.
Yes, you did. They are Bookwalter. That's correct. Nice to be here, Paul. Thanks for the invite.
Well, thank you, JR, for accepting it. And Ken and Tristan, how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing
Doing
pretty
great.
good, Paul. How are you?
Good, good. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying yourself. And let's begin. So, as we know, without further explanation, really, this started really last year with a movie of you guys may have heard Cherokee Creek, where they were one day short of releasing their film on Amazon right before they got a nasty email from Amazon themselves about pulling their film because for some weird reason, and I quote, offensive content, unquote. But it did not stop there because with our special guest tonight, JR, he has a couple of, well, actually, he can correct me on that, but he has quite a few films on Amazon himself. And he, This is where he's gonna have to correct me. I believe he did not really know they got pulled until he himself had to look it up or something like that. JR, I'm gonna let you take over. But what are your thoughts of this Amazon targeting indie filmmakers, and since it especially happened to you, how do you even take that?
Well, Amazon has been kind of a pain in the ass with this stuff for a while now. When I originally started dealing with their streaming service, I was going through another service that they own called Create Space, and it was basically you would send the DVD of your movie, they would rip it, and they would get it put on the streaming service, which is kind of a backwards way to do it from the beginning. But, anyways, there was a couple of titles, and the one that sticks out in my head at the time was a film from a filmmaker named Jason Paul Colliman was in Racine, Wisconsin. It was called Five Dark Souls, and it was something he had shot very early on in his career. I think it may have been one of his first movies. Shot on VHS. It was very, the quality was not the greatest, but they out and out just rejected it and would never put it on the service. So that was kind of my earliest thing. This dates back to a number of years because I had done the reissue of the movie when it came out on DVD. So that was kind of my first brush with that nonsense where they would just sort of like, slap it with this. But, I never had that problem before. But when Create Space kind of segued into this Amazon Direct video or what's now, I guess, Amazon Prime Direct, that's when it kind of got even more thorny. It was great in the beginning because they transitioned it over and they were like, okay, look, you have to have closed captions on everything now. And they were actually kind enough to actually do the automated closed captions for all of my titles. And right now I have 40 titles in the catalog. At that time I had more because I had some stuff that was acquired from other filmmakers. So I was actually going into this deal thinking, oh, this is very nice because I don't have to pay for all this closed captioning. They're just going to, automatically do it. But what I quickly found out is that they have some weird hangups with certain content. The second title that I was affected by was actually so innocuous. It's in the early '90s. I had edited a series called Shock Cinema for Dave Dakota's Cinema Home Video, and the first two were just interviews, and the third and fourth one were sort of clip shows, clips of some of my movies, Robot Ninja, Skin Alive, and some of Dakota's movies, Murder Weapon, and things like that. Well, the third one was like a boot for real and that kind of stuff. The fourth one was about makeup effects, showing how makeup effects are done. It would show like a scene from the movie, and then you would see behind the scenes footage. And Amazon basically banned that like immediately. It's Shock Cinema Volume 4. It's called Makeup Effects Behind the Scenes. And to this day, I can't figure out what in the world, why they ever did it. And there's a little bit of nudity at the beginning. There's like an opening montage to music or whatever. And I don't know if that was, somebody saw that and just shut the whole thing down. I even lobbied them and said, hey, this is educational. It's about showing how these movies are done. And I don't quite understand why. Well, they never would reverse it. So it was just locked out of the system. Once they lock it out, you can't go in and edit it. You can't change anything about it. It's just, that's it. It's done. So that kind of soured me on Amazon early on, well before this even happened. But this most recent event was basically out of all the titles that I had up there. I had lost maybe 4 or 5 titles out of my catalog over the years that the few years that I've been dealing with them directly. But this last week, they shut down 7 titles, almost all of which have really no violent content. It's not because of offensive content, but now they're saying they're giving some Byzantine quality excuse, like it doesn't meet their quality standards. And so that was kind of that's what led to this now. So basically, 2/3 of my catalog, or a third of my catalog, has been essentially removed from Amazon, not, without me controlling it. They just took it down. I wrote them their support service, and they're basically telling you that there's nothing you can do about it. If you repost it, it's going to be, you're going to lose your account. It's gone, and that's it. Just deal with it.
That's crazy. I mean, and I know some people that just, like you and others, that get an email that just say, oh, hey, we just pulled your thing down, and if you have any concerns or whatever, contact us. And then it's just like, you contact Amazon and they won't give you that answer. So it's like, what is really going on? And now I
Well,
know
and that's the
there's
crazy thing is they didn't even notify the filmmakers that they did this to. There's no
exactly.
communication whatsoever. I heard about it the night before. So I saw some filmmakers talking about it on Twitter, and the next day I went in. There's a web portal that you go into to check all this stuff, and I went in and saw that 7 of my titles had been just, basically like a Thanos style snap of the finger. They just vanished. They took it down. They're not available anymore. If anybody had previously purchased it, they still own it and can watch it, but it's not available. And it's not just Amazon Prime. It's not just the free streaming service. It's you can't rent it or buy it either. It's just gone.
I was just wondering about that for people that actually bought it, if they even took away the ability for that. So that's at least good for those that bought it. They can still watch it. But for somebody like, me, Tristan, and Ken here, who probably haven't seen them, then we're kind of shit out of luck right now.
Yeah, I mean, I when I announced it on Twitter, I had 2 or 3 people that wrote back and said, "Oh my gosh, I was just going to watch, one of those movies tonight, like literally." And it was like, "Nope, now you can't watch it. You got to go find another service to watch it on, or pop in a DVD or whatever." So yeah, it was really, it's sort of, I kind of expected this kind of thing from Amazon at this point, but I thought maybe they would be a little more communicative and certainly a little more. I mean, they didn't tell me this, but I've heard from other filmmakers because a number of us have been in touch with each other over the last week to discuss this. That there's basically no appeals process. You just, they're taking the movies down and that's it. You just have to put up with it.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Tristan. Go ahead.
So, excuse me, JR, why do you think that they're pulling your movies down from Amazon? Do you have like an idea on why they're doing it?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's the crazy thing is they're blaming it on some sort of weird quality issue, but the fact of the matter is, granted, now I've made some shot on video stuff in the past where the quality is certainly like questionable, so I'm not denying that. But they've taken down a handful of movies that I wouldn't consider that to be a quality. They're on other services, or they've been on Amazon in particular for years, but they're leaving other titles that are technically in worse shape are still on the service. So that's what doesn't make any sense to me. If it's a quality thing, you would think they would have just wholesale removed everything, or the stuff that they had an issue with. There's a lot of theories bouncing around as to what it is. I mean, some of us have said, well, maybe it's movies that were had so many bad reviews, or had so many user comments or whatever. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. Like, one of the titles they removed from my account was a film called Poison Sweethearts, which was actually just shot within the last decade or so. It was actually shot in HD, well lit, well shot. It doesn't, you wouldn't look at it and say, you might say it's not a great movie or it's whatever, but you wouldn't look at it and say the quality is terrible. You know what I mean? It's where there's other things I could see why maybe they would target them. There's a movie that I produced, many, many years ago called Chick Boxer that's still on the service. And it's, the original camera masters have long since been destroyed. So all I have is an edit master that's not in the greatest of shape, but you can still rent or own it. It's still available on Amazon service. So it doesn't seem to make any sense. Their quality excuse doesn't seem to hold water, as far as I can tell.
It seems to me that Ken here, by the way, from DK Mag, and a pleasure well, under this bad set of circumstances, but nevertheless, a pleasure to speak with you, JR. And it seems to me that what is necessary at this point with all the filmmakers is to pull all the resources together and seek legal counsel, because I was reading the language and the terminology used in that email that Amazon had issued to everyone, and it is so vague and it has so much holes that it looks like Swiss cheese. If they are
Yeah, no, I agree.
infringing on your right for expression, creative expression, then that is a civil case right there. Meanwhile, I checked Amazon, RoboCop is still there. RoboCop is contains violence, nudity, dismemberment. Unless they're infringing on the rights of independent filmmakers because they know they could get away with it, they won't go after the big budget titles because they know they have enough money to hire a legal team, much less a lawyer. That's
Well, I don't
the
even know. I'm not even sure it's that. Because I think with a lot of the content, I mean, if it comes from a studio, it's treated differently, and it always has been. I mean, this is nothing new. Even back in the VHS days when it was Blockbuster and Hollywood Video, they would take in stuff from the studios that they would have never taken in from the little guys. I mean, that's always been there. There's a great foreign film called Irreversible, which has this really horrible rape scene, and you can find that on Amazon Prime, Amazon Video.
I
It's available. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not a matter of. It's not really. I mean, there's two issues because some of us have had things taken down and it's citing offensive content, and others are just citing this sort of more vague quality issues or content quality. So it's hard to say what it is. I almost feel part of me feels like maybe it was just some sort of mistake and somebody just started pressing buttons and deleting thousands of movies. I mean, it varies by distributor too. I've been in touch with Cinema Epoch, which is a much bigger company than me, but they had way more titles, and they had almost 200 titles removed last week as a result of this. That it would be very painful. I mean, compared to my 40 titles that I own, and I lost 7 last week. That's not nearly as savage as what they're going through. And they probably have much higher overhead and everything else than I do. So it's affecting people on a different level. But it's just the scary thing about it is it just seems so random the way they're approaching it.
Mm. Once again, if they're censoring, that's also infringing on the freedom of expression. And this is one of the cases where the these platforms serve a great purpose for indie filmmakers. That is correct, but this is another circumstance where uh, there should be other platforms for the indie scene. These are corporate giants, and they feel that they could throw their weight all over the place as they feel at one time to anybody they please. And in circumstances like this, when it comes to art and creative arts, that shouldn't be the case, but it is happening. One thing I do recall when I first read about this was the incident with Unearthed Films, and they were posts from the film, a Serbian film, on eBay. And eBay quickly removed all content and told them it is against their rules and regulations. How?
Right. Yeah.
It's props. It's film props. You're not promoting racial overtones or whatever. It's art. So these are expected with these corporate giants, and the only issue here is just to hire a legal team. Everybody should just pull together and go that route. And I think Amazon would shrink because their bark is bigger than their bite.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has been some discussion about that going around too. I mean, the oddball thing about it is, like in my case, it's 7 titles or so that I lost. I mean, you can still buy them on DVD through Amazon, so it's not like they're trying to completely erase the movie from history, because if they could easily do that. They could just start pulling out down the discs as well. But for some odd reason, they seem to be targeting the streaming. And I'm not sure. I know there's been some theories thrown about that maybe they're just trying to clean house. I think Amazon is sort of looking to the future, that they want to be more like Netflix, where they're offering their original content and that's all they really care about, and maybe some stuff from the studios. The nice thing, the one reason that you saw all these independents on Amazon Prime in the first place is because they made it very easy for anybody to sign up for a free account and to start uploading their content. They wanted that originally. I mean, and this goes back, I think, 2, 3 years, 4 years when they started doing that. Maybe not even that long. But they invited this on themselves. They basically were like, everybody. They wanted to be another YouTube. I essentially think is what it was, but more for
Hmm.
feature length content and short films and things like that. But So they made it very easy to upload the stuff and essentially monetize it. You know what I mean? We're getting small slivers of the money that people are giving them for their Amazon Prime accounts. And they invited it, but now they're suddenly seem to be doing an about face where maybe they've decided that's not the approach they want to take. I wouldn't be surprised at this point if they just shut down the entire service, where independents can upload the stuff directly. There's still other ways to get on Amazon's streaming service. You go through aggregators and third parties that are sort of set up to do that. So it's not like these titles they may not disappear forever, but the direct conduit to Amazon appears to be, they're just slowly but surely making it more difficult to the point where I think it's gonna be gone at some point.
Right. And touching on that scenario, which is frightening in its own case, what is stopping Amazon to do the same with the indie publishing section that they offer, KDP, where independent writers are submitting their works? And uh, I would say to some I've seen, wow, like, they shouldn't be there in the first place, typos and grammatical errors. But there's also others that are noteworthy. What's stopping Amazon from taking those noteworthy publishing art down? It's a scary thought right there.
Well, especially when you look at Amazon as a sort of corporate behemoth. I mean, they essentially pushed out all of the bookstores for the most part, and now they're turning around all these years later and they're actually opening their own bookstores, which looks very sinister. If you look at it in a historical context, it's like, wait a minute, did you intend to do this all along? Was this some master plan that you wanted to shut all your competitors down and then start your own bookstore so that you corner the market? I mean, there's certainly federal regulations against that kind of activity, although
Right.
thus far Amazon doesn't seem to be suffering from that. They're big enough to escape it, I guess. But yeah, it's a little bit scary. I mean, I've really sort of lost a lot of faith in Amazon over the last week or two over this. I mean, I had my own issues with their streaming system, and was fed up with some of the things that they do. But I have a title. It's a low budget sort of zombie comedy title called Mulva Zombie Ass Kicker, and it's been on their system for years. It's available on DVD. About 2 months ago, I think they just suddenly, for whatever reason, decided that the title is offensive, and they were basically demanding that I take the title down, voluntarily. They didn't force it down at that point. So I removed it temporarily, thinking, well, okay, what can I do here? I can retitle the thing, or I can, put like dollar signs so that the S's in the word ass, since that's what they seem to be, have a problem with. And I actually had still not sort of resolved that. I had just left the title inactive, and then this all sort of happened. And so now I'm like, well, it seems like any move I make, I'm probably going to go to the trouble to change this thing and republish it, and only to find out it's going to get, smacked down anyway. So I'm not sure it's, that's just it. It's like, I think everybody's faith and trust in Amazon is now shaken to the point where I've talked to other distributors who are, it's affecting, they're not going to acquire content as much. They're not going to make as much content until this kind of shakes itself out, because they don't, nobody wants to spend a bunch of money, publish the stuff, and then just have it taken down in the snap of a finger.
Right. Yeah, because
it's hard to have a business model that's sort of designed around Amazon Prime at this point.
Right. Because of course, filmmaking is not just creating art; it's an entrepreneurial endeavor where you have to distribute your product across a wide audience. And Amazon is clearly not the best shape it is right now, and it also opens other options. This could be a blessing in disguise. Perhaps another streaming service just dedicated for the indie film, in horror and thriller and sci-fi will open up.
And that's been a discussion that I've been having with some other labels over the last week. It's certainly nothing to announce or nothing concrete yet. It's in the early discussions, but it was sort of like, maybe we should all just get together and and do our own streaming service, and the hell with them. I mean, the thing is, you know, you have these corporate giants are only looking at the bottom line, and they're not looking at a bigger picture. Even Time Warner Media is guilty of this. I mean, they had a great service for the last couple of years called Filmstruck that was for, you know, it was Turner Classic Movies and Criterion had gotten together and done this, and it had the backing of, you know, huge filmmakers, Martin Scorsese, all these, you know, all these guys were the huge fans of the service, and they shut it down at the end of November of last year, because, you know, who knows why? They just said we don't want to do this anymore. You know, AT&T bought Warner Media, and it suddenly just didn't look like a good business investment, or who knows, you know, what goes on behind the scenes. But they just took this treasure trove. You know, people could subscribe and watch all of these older films that have, you know, many of which are not available in any other format. Some of them never come on DVD, let alone, you know, VHS and that kind of thing. And, you know, in the snap of a finger, boom, it's all gone. So you know, my thing is we need a film structure for B movies, but that's actually owned by these independent creators and studios and labels. So we'll see. I don't know if anything's going to come out of it, but I know there's certainly a lot of us are frustrated, and we're certainly looking, you know, outside of the Amazon gates at this point. I mean, what Amazon's doing right now is not that dissimilar from what Netflix did a number of years ago. I don't know how many people remember when Netflix started their streaming service. It was, you know, sort of a graveyard in terms of, you know, if you wanted to watch anything that was produced out of Hollywood with stars and big budgets, you couldn't find any of that stuff there. But what you could find was a lot of the stuff that I made and the stuff that other independent filmmakers made, because Netflix is willing to pay us to you know, to put that stuff on there just to get content on there. Well, what happened was, after the first year or two, then they made a deal with Stars, the cable channel, and started to get Hollywood movies on the service. And as more and more people signed up and they got bigger and bigger, they decided, well, we don't need these indie movies anymore. So they basically showed us the door and said, goodbye. We're not going to renew your contract, and we're not going to keep your movies on there. So it is just eerie shades of exactly what Netflix did. And I think Amazon's trying to chart the same course at this point. But the surprising thing, I guess, really is just that they did this huge swath of movies that they sort of just, you know, removed, but they haven't really followed that up and done. And, you know, I think everybody's waiting for the other shoe to drop. They're waiting for, you know, more movies to get removed, and that hasn't happened yet, at least.
Mm-hmm.
To quickly touch on what you were talking about, JR, about changing your title, it reminded me of another film that came out last year on Amazon, and they just signed a deal with a company for bringing their film overseas, and the movie is called Don't Fuck in the Woods. So
right.
With Amazon,
yeah, well, that's gonna be a problem right there.
Yeah, so with Amazon, when you look it up on Amazon anyway, you get two different title ways of how they spelt it and had to correct it. So now the first way is don't F in the woods, and then the other way is don't F star 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 in the woods. So
Right.
and with the artwork too, it even looks like they even had to censor that word even on the DVD covers. So going back to that movie that you were talking about that was, I guess, offensive for whatever reason it was, you know, it's kind of like you said, like what do I kind of change the title to, and what else can you make it to fix it and all this other stuff. So I mean, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just feel it's almost like this censorship, but at the same time, I understand why they censored it anyway. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just reminds me of something like that. I don't know if you've heard of that movie anyway. So
yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with that one, but yeah, I mean, it's you know, the thing about Amazon, they, as a parent of, you know, I have two younger kids. I mean, they actually have a pretty good parental controls in place, so it's not like they can do any of this for that reason. They can't say, "Oh, well, we're afraid kids are going to accidentally, see Mulva Zombie Ass Kicker and start watching it." Well, no. If you're a diligent parent, you've put a code on there where your kids can only get to the level that you want them to. If it's a 13-year-old, they can't watch anything above 13 or 14 or 15 or whatever. They have that in place, and it's a pretty good system. So why they would just decide suddenly that this has got to go, this has got to go, this has got to go, I don't. But like I said, most of the movies that they removed of mine last week or 2 weeks ago, when this happened, are very innocent. I have one of the first things I did years ago when I started my home video label was this instructional video called Basic How to Halloween Makeups. It used to be two VHS tapes, and I sort of cut the two together for DVD and put it out. And so it was on the streaming service, and so of course, as you get closer to Halloween, it's a very popular title, and it's not particularly well made because the technology at the time wasn't great. But they pulled that one down, and it's like, for what reason? It's like, it doesn't even make any sense. There's no language in it. There's no violence in it. There's nothing. It's just an innocent little how-to makeup tape. I find it hard to believe. And anybody that's going to watch it on Amazon Prime, you're not really paying. They're not paying for it technically to begin with. I mean, it's part of your $99 a year or whatever. Everybody gets a little piece of that. But it's like, is it that too many people watched it and they don't want to pay those royalties anymore, or is it, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like a title like that, why that would have even been targeted is baffling.
Well, now we got Amazon that raised the yearly subscription, I'll say, for for Prime. So now instead of 100, now you pay like 120 now. All because
That's right,
what?
yeah.
All because of what though? To get their original shows, or like what's going on here? So
well, that's what it is, and that's exactly why Netflix keeps raising their prices, because they're putting more and more money into original content. They don't really care. I mean, I kind of lost interest in Netflix years ago because they just didn't have most of the stuff that I wanted to see wasn't on there, and I don't really care about their original content. I want to see the movies I want to watch, and if they're not there, I'll go find them on another service. I mean, they did at least have the Marvel Comics shows that they did. That sort of kept me paying my subscription for a little bit longer. But I think Amazon Prime runs the risk of doing the same thing, because it's like, I know in my family we've noticed, I do have an Amazon Prime membership, although I probably will not be renewing it if this doesn't get resolved. But even their 2-day shipping, which is part of that deal, and that was the sort of the foundation of it, and even that's getting sort of unreliable. They're not, things aren't showing up on time. Yeah, I mean, it's not just, they're not just dropping the ball on the streaming side, they're dropping the ball on that whole service. And I think, and if enough people get frustrated with it, they may see sort of a mass exodus away from it. A lot of people may just say, well, this is not, paying more money for what?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess original stuff. And the sad thing too is, like, we hear in the news lately is that the Amazon workers even are, getting treated like shit and stuff. So my thoughts are too is, well, maybe they're raising the prices to help give the employees more, but how much you want to bet none of the employees are going to see like a
I would highly doubt that it has anything to do with that. And the thing is, I'll tell you honestly, Amazon has been a crummy deal for independent filmmakers for years. I mean, going back, even when like the DVDs, I'm part of they have a service called Amazon Advantage where you basically can get your DVDs published on there. If you're shipping them to their warehouse and they're offering it, but they're only paying us. They keep 55% of everything that is sold. So if I list a title for $20, they're keeping 55% and giving me 45%. Now, okay, maybe it's their service, right? They have a lot of people shop on there, but it's not sort of weighed properly, because I have to manufacture the product, I have to ship the product to them. Granted, they're shipping it from their warehouse to the customer, but it's always been kind of a crummy deal, even on the physical media side. So I mean, if they're getting the lion's share of the sale, they should be offering something more than just having a storefront to buy the stuff. But they really don't. They don't care. They know
I
people
also,
are going to buy the
yeah,
stuff, and that's it.
yeah. I was also hearing from another person who releases films by the name or from his company called Hex Media, and he was talking about how Amazon is raising the royalties to like 70%. I don't know if you heard something about that.
I haven't heard that. I will
Yeah,
say, going back to Amazon Prime too. I mean, that last year, I think March or April, they kind of kneecapped all the independent filmmakers because the way that Amazon Prime works is, from that, however many people are streaming your title, they basically pay you some
by
small
the minute or
fraction.
something like that.
Yeah, by the minute, exactly. You have to watch so much of it before you get paid anything. But they've made
Yep.
it. They changed what they call the performance metric, which is basically like how they do the math to figure this out. They changed it last spring so that basically people like me that aren't, I'm not having hundreds of thousands of minutes streamed every month, so I'm automatically making less than half of what I was making prior to that. So even starting back last spring, Amazon Prime was a crappy deal for somebody like me, and there's certainly guys in even worse shape that only have a handful of titles that are being affected by that. Because if you're not hitting, if hundreds of thousands of people aren't watching your movie, you're not getting paid anything. I mean, it's what I call McDonald's money. Like, you can you can go to McDonald's by yourself and not even take your family, and you have to buy off the value menu or whatever. I mean, it's not, they're just not. They don't even want to. Even if you're streaming your stuff, they don't want to pay you. They're just finding every possible way that they can to not pay people, not pay content creators.
Yeah, it's just getting disgusting, really, and it's really sad because there is a lot of great indie horror out there. Even if it's just not indie horror, I mean, anybody that's an indie filmmaker deserves to have their movie, get brought out into the light of the world. Because otherwise, how else are they going to be noticed? And Amazon is such a big, well-known company that everybody wants to be on there. But now with this whole targeting indies, it's it's almost like a big slap in the face to them because now, it's like you posted that post with the screenshot there, and it just only takes like that one person to tell that person and so on and so on. And then, next thing you know, Amazon is going to fall into a great big hole when it comes to trying to find movies for streaming.
Yeah, I mean, I've been an Amazon fan for years. I mean, back when they just sold books, even I used to buy books from them, and I've spent a lot of money over the years at Amazon. But all of this has really made me hit the pause button and go, what am I really getting for my money here? And it's both as not just supplying them with content. I'm also talking about my household. We have subscribe and save items, and we're always, there's Amazon boxes always showing up at my house. It's sort of like, maybe we shouldn't, maybe this is not where we should be spending our money. Maybe there's other retailers that we would, sure, maybe you might pay a little bit more, but maybe that's the better thing to do, and maybe this company has just sort of gone off the rails here, and they certainly don't care about customers, I don't think. I mean, they used to be very customer friendly. If you had a problem, you could contact them and they would make it right in some way, and nowadays they really don't seem to care. If you have a problem, they're just like, well, sorry.
Well, that's interesting that you kind of brought that up because that kind of brings back to what I was talking about at the beginning of this with Cherokee Creek. And just yesterday, Amazon actually put Cherokee Creek back on Amazon, even though they first pulled it a day before its original release. And
yeah, I heard that was starting to happen with a few titles, that a few people were able to get the stuff back on there again.
yeah, so do you think it's from all the people that maybe called in and complained about it, or what do you think happened with that?
Well, I'm not sure what the background of that movie. I don't know if there was a bigger independent company that maybe they put their muscle or weight behind it and said, hey, you're going to lose our other content if you don't make this right. It's hard to say. They seem to really be picking on the smaller people that really sort of rely on their service, who don't have any recourse. They're basically like, we're not going to relist it, and you can't continue to offer it, and that's it. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? There's, like I said, there's these third-party aggregators that you can go through to sort of get the content back on there, but there's no, who knows if once you're blacklisted, if that's actually what it is. When they've taken a title down, even if you try and go through another service, they may look it up and say, oh, here's this basic how-to Halloween makeups that's been blacklisted. No, it's not going back on the service, and through any way. That seems to be the way they're explaining it anyway. So it's interesting. We'll see. I am still not 100% convinced that this isn't some horrible mistake on somebody's part. I feel like maybe somebody fell asleep on the keyboard and shut off like thousands of titles accidentally. But then you get these messages back from Amazon support, and it seems pretty final. So I think the more noise that's made about it, it's kind of last weekend there was a lot of noise about it. This week, not so much. I'm thinking maybe Amazon's just saying, well, we'll just ride out the storm and nobody will care in a few weeks. But that's where guys like you come in to to kind of keep spreading the word and taking the cattle prod to them.
Right. And I, I have to elaborate on what I had mentioned earlier with these corporate entities really flexing their muscle and picking out the small guy. This eBay did it with Unearthed Films. Amazon is doing it right now, and I just finished reading an article a couple of minutes ago. YouTube is also attacking once again content creators, and this all falls under the same umbrella. First, they were pulling their funding, and now they are pulling certain themes of videos, which in its own right is artistic, as freedom of expression. It's not causing a riot. You're not insulting the president and causing him bodily harm or threatening his life. Is informational videos on YouTube, and now they're being targeted and pulled down. So it seems to be a recurring pattern with all these big entities. Is frightening right now to be an independent content creator.
Yeah, a lot of it also goes down to, it has a lot to do with piracy. And in the case of YouTube, this has been an ongoing problem. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen my earlier films, people just post the entire movie on YouTube. I'm talking about The Dead Next Door, Robot Ninja, all the stuff that I, made years ago. And I don't understand what makes people think that that's okay, that they can do it. Now on the flip coin of that is there's a lot of people who love the movies that are fans of the movies, and they'll post the trailers or they'll post little scenes that they like. I don't care about that stuff. That's great. I appreciate the fact that they like the movie enough to want to share it with people, but to share the entire movie, that's a little bit different story. And the entire generation that's grown up with YouTube is used to I'll go YouTube it, I'll watch it for free. I don't have to pay for it. So this has been a big problem for a number of years with smaller independents as well. Well, that's actually sort of happening on Amazon Prime as well, because it's so easy for anybody to just, start an account and upload content. There's movies up there that probably shouldn't be up there. It's not the copyright holders that are posting it. It's some guy that got a hold of a decent copy of it and decided to put it up there. So that's, I think, a lot of this sort of knee-jerk reaction you're seeing from YouTube and Amazon to pull a lot of stuff, I think has something to do with that as well. Because suddenly when this purge happened within the last couple of weeks, you were seeing a lot of questionable titles come down that maybe there's not, maybe it's not the copyright holders that had posted it in the first place. And that stuff is, that's a good thing that they would pull that stuff down, because the content creator should be the one getting, reaping the rewards of it, not some pirate that's just, posting it. But I don't know if we're just being caught in the crossfire, if they're just running scared about this stuff. I mean, there's so many variables as to what it could be. But whatever it is, they kind of need to straighten it out because it's not, they have not gone about it correctly. Let's put it that way.
Right. Yeah. The voices should unite in this type of scenario. And as you had mentioned, one week the voices are heard, and the following week everybody's on mute. If there's consistent uproar and fire, yeah, it's gonna create more. It probably go mainstream. We probably see this report on the 6 o'clock news, and that's all it takes is just the community to come together in this instance and say, hey, stand up for little guy standing up to the big guy, versus Goliath once again.
Yeah, and generally, I think the news people like that kind of, that's always a popular story when anybody's trying to stand up to, a bigger faceless corporation. But we'll see. I don't know long term if that's going to continue, if enough people are going to continue to get, teased off about it. I mean, I've had a lot of, for some reason, my Facebook posts that I made circulated to a lot of people, and I've had a lot of people contact me about different things, with this, and they're asking me about other avenues that, that since everybody's treating Amazon as the closed door now, because that's kind of the way they're painting it, and we really don't know how it's all going to shake out in the future. I know personally, I mean, right now, I don't have any brand new content to put up there, but if I did, I would be, like, is it even worth uploading it? Are they going to push it through? Is it going to, you just don't know. So it really makes it, when they're just saying it's the content quality without any specifics, that's it. They've never been specific. Going back to at the beginning of this conversation where I was mentioning this Shock Cinema Volume 4 that they pulled down, which was the first thing that they did that to, they would never tell me what the problem was. Tell me there's nudity at 30 seconds in or whatever, if that's what it is, but they would never do that. So, and I think that's because they don't want to be viewed or painted with the censorship brush. They don't, they're like, we're not censored, but we're not going to post this. They want it both ways.
And that's why they are ratings, PG, rated R. If that's the case, Amazon should come up with their own rating system, even for video games, books, the whole 9 yards, and avoid this atrocious act against artists.
Yeah, I mean, that would help too. The problem is, it's like most of my movies have never been rated by the MPAA because it's expensive to do it, and then not just expensive, but you go in there, and I've heard plenty of stories from other people who have gone through the process, and it's just brutal. They'll tell you, they don't want to be viewed as censors, so they won't tell you, take this out, take this out, take this out, but they basically, point you in the right direction as to what you have to remove to get the rating that you're looking for. But it's not just, unrated doesn't, or not rated, I guess is the way we properly word it. But I mean, what does that mean? I have a service called Movies Anywhere, where I use the digital movies that I buy from different services that it can play, and I have accounts set up for my kids where they can only see content that is in their age appropriate range. I went on there one day and I was looking for, my daughter wanted to watch one of her Curious George movies, and I knew I owned it, but I searched for it and I couldn't find it. I'm like, what in the world? Like, I know I own this. So I switched to my account, which doesn't have any of these restrictions, and there it was. The reason it wasn't showing up in the search is because it was marked as not rated. So suddenly it's like, here's a kid's cartoon, Curious George, that my daughter can't watch on this service because somebody's flagged it with the wrong, rating, or it just got filtered out basically. So that's not a foolproof way to do it either, the rating system, but it's flawed, but at least, it's better that we have it, I guess. And maybe Amazon does need to come up with their own, like I said, as a parent, I kind of applaud them for their, parental controls, but I'm not sure how many parents actually go to the trouble to set that stuff up. So maybe that's part of the problem too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, just a little bit off topic. Look at all the parents that go out and buy their 7 or 8-year-old kid, like Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, and it's I guess it's okay. I guess because it's just a video game. But I see what
Well,
you're.
yeah, I mean it's that stuff's kind of, I guess it depends on my son plays something. He doesn't play those particular games, but there's certainly, he's 10 and there's some stuff that he plays that he probably shouldn't be. But I think that's okay if that's up to the parent, individual parent, to sort of recognize what's appropriate for your kid, I guess. But I see a lot of kids that are go to school with him that are in his age range that they've all seen like all the Friday the 13th movies, all the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I mean, they've seen all this stuff when they were like 6, 7, 8 years old. And here I'm like telling my kid, nah, you can't watch that yet. So I don't know what's the right thing to do here. It's like if everybody else has already seen it and he's hearing about it at school, it's sort of like, well, I don't know.
Well, here's an off-topic thing again, but back when I used to smoke cigarettes, I quit now back in 2014, I believe. I actually forgot now. It's been that long since I've quit smoking. But I remember one time though I was at a park and this 7 and 8 year old kid literally comes up to me because I'm smoking a cigarette, and he goes, can I bum a cigarette? And I'm like,
Oh my
no.
gosh.
I'm like, no. I'm like, what would your mother think? Like, you shouldn't even be doing this. And you know what the kid's response was? Oh, it's okay. My mom gives me a cigarette all the time.
Yeah, well, that's
What?
what I was going to say. That was probably the kicker to that story, was that
Exactly.
probably is exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we live in a different society. When I was a kid, I'm 52 now. When I was a kid, I had to get my fill of horror movies. I either had to rope a parent into taking me to see an R-rated movie, or I had to watch, late movies late at night, like the horror host shows and all that kind of stuff. But these kids now can just dial up almost anything they want, you know, from any of these services or from YouTube or whatever. So we definitely live in a different world when it comes to that kind of thing.
Agreed. And
Right.
And just real quick, JR, before I forget this, and to shed some light on this very interesting topic anyway, but this is uh, a comment that I got from our buddy over from Unlisted Owner, and he wanted me to ask you about, isn't Unlisted Owner Blu-ray coming out?
It is indeed. It's kind of getting caught up right now by my workload outside of this, but it is coming in the next couple of months here. Yeah, at long last, it will be released on Blu-ray.
That is amazing, amazing. But yeah, he did want me to say that while I was talking.
Yeah, I feel bad. Jed, you're talking with Jed Bryan, the filmmaker. I've been so busy with. I'm in the midst of finishing Blu-ray for Robot Ninja, which is a project I've been working on restoring for the last year. So I've just been like a madman trying to get all this stuff done, and there's unfortunately only so many hours in a day. So they're probably both going to come out around the same time. So.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome, though, and it's good to see somebody like you that's actually mastering it to put it out there. So I definitely appreciate you for doing that, for helping other indie filmmakers.
Oh yeah, I've always tried to do that over the years. I mean, I'm kind of a one-man band. I have been for a number of years, where I, not only was making the movies at one time, I've also, do a lot of graphic design. I author the discs, and I encode the stuff for the streaming services. And it's not like I have a huge staff of people here. I'm just kind of, I look at my day and I'm like, what do I got to get done here, and and just try and maximize the amount of time that I do have available.
Well, when you did, go ahead, Ken. Go ahead.
No,
Ken,
I was about to say, I can relate to that. Being a one-man band of your own company, it has its pros, and the con is there's only 24 hours in a day. I wish there was more hours, but then I'll hear the hate from those who hate Mondays and look forward to Fridays and always say, "Hey, look, it's hump day." That 9 to 5 mentality. But when you don't have that luxury and you're just trying to run and keep your things running and flowing, yeah, it's you kind of wished you had 25 hours in a day or more.
No, yeah, I mean, my wife's constantly criticizing me because any chance that I get, I kind of slip away and try and get something done, and it's like I'll be done by such and such time or whatever. It's like you just when you're self-employed and you're doing everything pretty much by yourself,
Yeah, it
that
doesn't
can be
happen.
challenging, especially when you have kids and you're working. I work from home. I have for years, so it's and I love it because I could be around my kids and my family, but at the same time, it's like, they come running in and there's one little distraction. It's like, oh crap, what was I doing? Now I got to remember where I was on this project. So it comes with its own set of challenges. Yes, you're not standing around the water cooler talking about the Super Bowl or whatever people talk about at work, but you have your own challenges, I guess, too.
No, real quick though, I was gonna say, is you probably saw my name come up when you were doing your sales, unfortunately, for the Tempe video thing. I actually was the one you probably saw for Unlisted Owner. So that was me.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've actually kind of, is in the wake of this whole Amazon thing. The one thing that it has had is my goal originally with Tempe was to kind of just push the old stuff, not push it away, but I was looking to shift from physical to more all streaming. And I've certainly kind of maybe hit the pause button on that plan because it's like, well, I can't trust that Amazon or anybody else is going to have my back. You know what I mean? So it's I've kind of reopened the store now, and so the stuff is available again. At least what I have left, anyways. But I'm still moving on from Tempe Entertainment. But in the
Is that
meantime, until I kind
Tempe
of figure
Digital?
out what the next thing is. Yeah, well, Tempe Digital is still around. I mean, when I do this Robot Ninja Blu-ray that's coming out here in a couple of months, that's gonna still be
Oh,
on
okay.
that label name at least. So it's
Okay.
not completely, it's not as dead as I wanted it to be at the beginning of the year, but things have taken longer than I would have liked them to. So that's just the way it is, I guess. So it's on life support. Let's put it that way. But I'm kind of looking to segue into a different company and different strategy and all that kind of stuff. But it just that hasn't all formulated yet. So, and now with this nonsense going on with Amazon, it's sort of making me rethink that to some degree.
Oh, I completely agree. And I'm trying to think if there's really anything we can touch on too. Is there anything, JR, that you want to speak your mind about this whole Amazon thing? Because I mean, I think for me personally, anyway, unless Tristan or Ken have something to ask you too, or maybe state their opinion. But do you have anything that you would like to throw out there about this Amazon targeting stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I can tell you it's sort of a double-edged sword because my knee-jerk reaction to it is to tell people don't buy anything from Amazon, and not watching the streaming service, but just cut them off at the knees completely and don't spend your money with Amazon. But that's maybe a little, you know, that's in a perfect world. It would be great if everybody just suddenly turned off the Amazon faucet and the Amazon was directly affected by it. The reality is, rather than try and shut them down, which is not going to happen probably. The thing to do is just to look elsewhere for this kind of content. And there's services like Vimeo, which now Amazon prior to this happening was probably one of the only places that you could get almost all of my Tempe digital library. Like I said, I have 40 titles that I own outright. Almost all of them were up there. Now they've kind of chipped away at that. But Vimeo is the only place where you can actually, if you want to rent or own any of this stuff to be able to stream it, there's other services out there like Vimeo who are not sort of censoring this stuff. And there's a title that I own called, that the same filmmaker that did Malva did, Chris Seaver. It's called Filthy McNasty 4 Carnal Holocaust. And it's sort of like a ridiculous, sort of
I like
like
that name.
gross out sex movie, I guess. If that makes it's not really, it's not very dirty actually. I'm overselling it probably, but that's one title that like Google Play rejected it, Amazon rejected it. It's like,
Wow.
as far as streaming, the only place you can get it is Vimeo, and that's just because outside of outright pornography, they basically just take everything. They don't have any restrictions. I mean, you can't post porn there, but other than that, you can pretty much, so they're really, as a streaming provider, I would sort of encourage people to at least try them out. They have apps for all the major streaming boxes and smart TVs and all that kind of, the tablets and smartphones and all that kind of stuff. And you can find a ton of content on there. The hell with Amazon and their so-called original content. Vimeo is really hosting some very original stuff from hardworking content creators, and it's certainly worth at least giving them a look, and dabbling with some of that stuff and checking it out. So that would really be my, I'm less focused on trying to shut Amazon down and more focused on sort of a more positive experience for content creators, and to sort of praise somebody who actually is out there, making an easier way for us to get seen.
Yeah, I mean that's right. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, there's other streaming services out there. Might as well look elsewhere, as you, like you said, if you don't want to look at Amazon anymore because of all this stuff that's going on. And I mean, there's there's Voodoo, there's that one, there's iTunes, there's Google Play, there's Netflix, and what's the other one? Screenbox, Shutter. I mean, there's streaming services are constantly coming out, new ones anyway. I mean, look at IMDb. They just released their own streaming service now, and
and I think you're going to see even more as a result of this Amazon thing. I think you're going to start to see even more people launching.
exactly.
The problem, I as a small indie, because I've thought about it too. It's like, well, maybe I should do my own Roku channel, or my own streaming service. But I have 40 movies that I own, and that's not enough to make a catalog to get somebody to want to subscribe and pay monthly or whatever. So that's where I kind of thought the better thing to do is for all of the independents to sort of, as many of the independents as we can, to sort of get together and do it as a joint effort. Since we're all sort of in the same boat, one guy might have a couple hundred titles, one guy might have, 50 titles, whatever, but combined, we actually could have thousands of titles and sort of, really create a service that would, fans would be eager to subscribe to and get their fix of this stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, especially if you offer different type of categories. I mean, that's one thing everybody looks for too, is different categories for whatever. Even if it's just not just horror related, they still look for those categories, because maybe one night they're not really feeling the horror genre. Maybe they're looking for that comedy aspect or something,
Yeah, well, that was my idea, was to make it like a film struck for B movies, where it broadens the net a little bit. It's not just horror specific, which is, that's great to have something like Shudder where you can just get horror movies. But unfortunately, Shudder's kind of done the same thing now, where they're more focused on original content. I used to subscribe to it, and it was great because they had all the classic stuff, and you could pull up all the stuff I wanted to see was on there. And then suddenly they kept pitching me about this, that, and the other thing that I'd never heard of and really wasn't interested in, to the point where I was like, well, I don't know if I'm going to renew this, because it's not, I'm not seeing the stuff that I want to see on there. I want to watch the older stuff, and they apparently catering to a younger audience that wants to see new stuff. So that makes me think, okay, well, now I got to find another service that's going to offer the stuff that I want to see. I want like a video store. I want to be able to walk in and, and have that breadth of selection, I guess, the depth of selection.
Well, I'm going to sound like a dinosaur again, but you know what I miss? I miss my Blockbuster. Used to go there every weekend and rent like 4 movies and watch them all during the weekend. And you know what? I loved it. And that's how I found really amazing horror titles, or whatever title, really, because we have so much of a section, and I just miss those days.
Yeah, I mean, I was all for the streaming. I mean, as a collector, I was always like, wouldn't it be great if you could just call up any movie you wanted and watch it right then and there? This was before it was actually streaming. We didn't know what it was going to be. And it is great, but at the same time, it's frustrating, because it's like, one title's on one service, another title's on another service. It's like, you can't possibly the average household cannot possibly subscribe to all these services to where you would be able to. So that was what made something like Amazon great, because they did have a selection, and they did have almost everything you could want was practically on there. I mean, granted, again, nobody's got everything, but and now they've kind of taken that away but in one fell swoop. They've sort of removed thousands of titles that to make it where they're just as generic as everybody else. They don't if they don't have it, then somebody's going to go elsewhere to find it. So
Exactly.
that's
Yep.
that's the one freedom that we do have. If you're not happy with your content provider, you could search for another one.
Yep. That's true. All right. Ken, Tristan, is there anything else that you would like to put into this, or do you guys, and JR too, do you guys feel like you've talked enough?
Lessons learned. Another lesson for the the parallels of being a filmmaker, distributor, and entrepreneur. This is another case scenario, and hopefully it shines better in the future. And if it doesn't, I always see the positivity. Something may open up, a different platform just caters to horror, thrillers, science fiction, exclusive for indie filmmakers. So let's see what happens.
Yes, I agree. And thank you guys for shedding a spotlight on it. That's the important thing.
Oh, you're very welcome, JR. I just find it bullshit because, indie, like I was just saying before, indie horror has a lot of great things to offer. And even though a lot of people don't want to admit it half the time when it comes to bigger budget, but, it's really, really cool. No, I can't even find a word for it. I'm just going to say really cool when a film can outdo a Hollywood film. And I think that's where the big budget jump on board to try to hurt the indie film anyway. Because, if a bigger budget Hollywood can make a film for $3 million, but then this indie person can make it for 3,000 and it's better than Hollywood, yeah, I mean, it's gonna come back, and it's just not cool, and it's really sad because, like I said, there's a lot of things indie horror can do and offer, if not shine lights on new things that, of course, Hollywood will pick up and then make it turn it into garbage. Like a good example is look at what did that company there the Hornet one, something Hornet. It's the people that made that Slender Man web series and movie. Like I think it's called like Are You Watching or He Is Watching or something. And then look at Hollywood. They tried making their own Slender Man and it went to shit. It didn't even do good at all. So I mean, indie horror can do so much more than what everybody really thinks, and that's I think why they attack it too. Is my own opinion. But yeah, Tristan, are you there? Is there anything you want to add into this, or Ken? Anything else? I just want to make sure.
I'm good. I think Tristan fell asleep.
Probably. Well, JR, if you need to go, then I appreciate your time. I hope you had a great conversation with us as well, and hopefully we'll see you back on the show.
All right, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, JR.
Good night, guys. All right.
You too.
Take care. Figured this next topic would be something of influential, especially with the independent horror scene, but also it caters to Hollywood cinema. But with the case of Hollywood, tragically, the feature of this topic that I'm going to introduce was taken away. And what I mean by that is that you no longer see a female going through the grinder. And there were many films during the 70s that were released, the exploitation era, in which the form would be raped or have acts of violence done upon her, but she would change and turn the tables against the predators or attackers. And so the topic that I present is the evolution of the female protagonist, the final girl, if you will. And we see this is a staple in cinema. Even with science fiction, we see that for the case of Alien, we could dissect that film. Not only do we have a strong female figure, but also the alien symbolizes male phallus, and it also symbolizes a male oppressive force symbol against a woman. Love that type of social commentary, and for horror cinema, which is rich in social commentary, they should be pushing the envelopes, and they I refer to Hollywood. We only see indie films, which really showcases the female form in that way. Hopefully, 2019, we see the next installment for I Spit on Your Grave. In any event, Paul, what is your opinions and what have you seen transmogrify with the female form? I gave two classic examples there. One would be the extreme uh, point of view, one would be the science fiction point of view.
Well, I will have to agree with you about the alien. Sigourney Weaver does an amazing job portraying Ellen Ripley as that strong female protagonist, especially when it came down to the sequel of Alien. And then look at Alien 3, where she went through hell and back. She was a prisoner. She had to get all the prisoners to understand, like this. Well, Alien 3 introduced the alien dog, but in this case, it was more like she once again had to lead them all. But of course, you got to look at it as another tragedy, just like with Aliens, where we're watching this woman uh should like almost like get destroyed, like she desecrating herself because it's tragedy after tragedy after tragedy, and then at the very end she just couldn't take it anymore, and because she had that alien queen embryo inside her, she decided instead of giving it to Wayland Yutani, she would sacrifice herself by jumping into the lava pit. And it's if you ever listen to those really great big fans of Alien, kind of like, I wouldn't say I'm a great big hardcore fan, but I am a big fan. And I do agree and see why people look at Ellen Ripley as like a mother figure. Do you see that, Ken, too, with Ellen Ripley?
Never actually seen her as the woman figure, the mother figure. I mostly associate her role as the suppressed female because every scenario that she's in, it's always the male oppression that she goes up against. The corporation is male, and the the guy that was he was kind of a slick leech in part two. He was also a male, and the planet, they were all males. So you see this pattern, and you begin to wonder, is this film supposed to symbolize how a woman would be in a male oppressive world, which is, let's say, in a corporate world where she may be getting lower salary than her male counterparts. So it all parallels. Horror, in a way, if you dissect it, it parallels so much with real life.
Mm, yes. Well, I guess where the mother figure comes into play as, like, she trying to find her daughter. She hadn't seen her daughter in forever because she just was locked in space for so many years. She was in hypersleep for so many years, and then look at like Alien when she found Newt. Like she was trying to become a mother figure since she couldn't be a mother figure for her daughter, Amanda Ripley. So, so the way I look at it as a mother figure is because she is trying to, she's trying to become that mother that she couldn't be for Amanda Ripley, if that makes sense. So because she failed with Newt, because, the beginning of Alien 3, as we see why, it it kind of destroys her because she was hoping she could maybe spark that mother figure again, because like I said, she couldn't really be that mother figure for Amanda Ripley. But anyway, back on track. I mean, we could go into uh what would that be? I want to say it would be German. Look at the German film called like Cold Prey. Where those group of people who are trying to ski, and one of them accidentally, breaks their leg, and they need to find a place for the night. And when they do, it's not what it seemed to be. And then once again, we get that strong female role with Cold Prey, even.
Right.
So,
This,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, seeing the strong female role in horror cinema predates this Me Too movement. I think if you look at horror cinema from the 70s, the 60s, subtracting, of course, the slasher era of the 80s where the female would trip in the woods. No, that's bad examples there. But we always see strong female leads, and that is so empowering. And now that we have the Women in Horror Film Festival, Women in Horror Month, that are showcasing not only women in front of the camera, but behind the camera, it's a huge impact on the genres all around. You brought up that example. I bring up the French horror film High Tension. Look at that
Mm,
role.
that's a great
Amazing,
one.
amazing role.
Yes.
Amazing role right there. And we have actresses that work their asses off as leads. I could name many on the top of my head, and I think the female actresses outnumber the actors that you could see them in every other movie here and an indie film releases.
Mm, mm. Man, I mean, I wouldn't say it's it's a strong female role, but in a way it is. I mean, look at the French film Martyrs. I mean, look at all that trauma and beatings that lady survived through, and she was one of those rare type of females that was strong enough to go through all that and still not die. And Martyrs is pretty much a fucked up film anyway. But I mean, what are your thoughts on that one? Like, do you think like that would be a good way to portray a lead female too?
Yes, yes. I am a huge advocate of those exploitation era films. And I opened up my presentation with this topic because Hollywood doesn't do those type of films anymore. They stray away from anything that's controversial. Everything is PG-13 and a money grab. They don't really showcase the female form at all. And if they do, on a very tame level. And Halloween, for the pros and the cons for that film, yes, we have a female role, main protagonist there, but also look how old she is. For her age to be in a lead, that's incredible, and you have to applaud that. Usually, you see young girls in the lead, so we have to see the positives in it for that Halloween film. For those who see the negative, but I'm hoping that's why here in the independent field, we always find these controversial films with women being degraded in a way, but it's not in a bad way. It's it's part of the evolution of the character. It's supposed to show empowerment, just like I Spit in Your Grave shows empowerment, and every other film like this. There's a message there, but of course, people would take it for what it is on the surface. Oh, you degrading women. Oh, you raping women. Oh, this and that. No, 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 no. You got to look beneath it, analyze it. What is the story telling you underneath the subtext?
That is true. And I know you did a interview in an episode about that one film for Trauma. I personally haven't seen it yet, but you have. And doesn't that have like a strong female protagonist?
Well, they have a group of girls, and not only do they showcase the female form, violence against the female form from males, once again from males, but also there is lesbianism. There is the context of incest. There's a context of rape. All these taboos that we find in the indie film, Hollywood, once again, they don't touch it. But when you watch the film, don't watch the film for what it is. You see these girls getting raped or mutilated and what have you. No, at the end, that final act, that's where the story all comes together. Says, this is empowerment right here. This is a story that should be out, and it's a true story too. And we could also highlight that, but also what the girls went through, and at the final act, you're like, wow. Now that's how you tell a story of female empowerment, of females kicking ass.
That is correct. That is correct. And you know what's really interesting that you brought up is that Hollywood doesn't make these type of films anymore. Is and it's true. But look at all the films coming out overseas that are foreign that have that strong female protagonist, and they're doing like the whole no hold bar thing where if they're gonna tell when they tell the story, they're gonna go all out. While like you were saying with Hollywood, it's well, we'll try to get that cash grab with the bigger audience, not just that one specific group. And that's why we're probably seeing all those new PG-13 horror films. And it's sad because, now we're uh, getting films that are so watered down that they're not portraying. Do I want to use the word portraying? Well, yeah, sure. Maybe I'll use it portraying, but they're not really portraying like the real story, the real fear. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and they have Terminator, the next Terminator installment coming in, and they have Linda Hamilton in the lead as that as well. Once again, we see a female lead, and she is an older, a woman of older age. That I highlight. Great, that's wonderful. All power to them, because at the end of the day, if you could showcase a strong female lead as a teenager or early 30s, middle 20s, hey, why don't you showcase a strong female lead 50, 60 years old? Hey, why not? That's good. I would, even if the Terminator sucks, hey, at least you're showcasing that. I gotta give him a applause for that. But for the indie circuit, the evolution of the female form has taken such a drastic change. We see females fighting their attackers. We see also females in the role as the antagonist, something that we have never seen before. And I know you've seen your fair share of slasher films that the killer is a woman. And you're like, wow, that's a good spin on things. And she's taking on everybody, the guys, the girls, wiping them out. I like that. That's pretty cool. I think
Mm,
that's what really built horror cinema. It's just the female taking. what's supposed to be pure feminine, and you mentioned motherly figure, that type of image, and just contorting it and making it ruthless.
Well, we might as well throw in The Eyes of My Mother. Or
Yeah.
maybe what's that other foreign film? Goodnight Mommy.
Right, right, right. And basically, I would say 4 out of 5 body horror films are the body that's going that transformation is a female form. And I would think one at the top of my head was a guy, and it didn't have that same impact for some reason. Now that I realize it, saying, okay, the guy's changing into whatever he's changing. Oh, okay. But when the woman is undergoing that change, like, wow, she's going through some tough shit there. Must be something ingrained in our psyche that we don't want to see a female form changing into a zombie, or melting her body, melting away into a cocoon or something like that. I don't know. It has to,
Uh,
we have to delve into Sigmund Freud in here some way, because if we compare those two films, that a guy's changing, I think, what was he changing into, a zombie or something like that, and you take the flip side and it's a woman, I think you feel more sympathetic for the woman.
hmm, that is a good point. That is a good point. And it is quite interesting though that nowadays we do see that change in horror films with the female protagonist being stronger than the males. But then again, look at in real life, Ken. I mean, we see those memes all the time where us guys are doing the most craziest, stupid things that could literally kill us, but we just don't use our brains. And then, that's where that famous Mimi quote comes in. This is why ladies outlive males. But,
Yeah, that could
it's
be true.
true. And,
Right.
and, I think that's an interesting way of, I guess, shifting. I mean, we have all these films where we got in the strong male role, and they're good. Don't get me wrong, but it is also nice to see that shift because women are usually stronger than us guys anyway. I mean, look at all the stuff they got to go through between being pregnant to their monthly happening to like everything really. I mean, they usually have to deal things 10 times harder than us guys anyway. So
Right. And you bring up a good point with the pregnancy. The French film Inside also delves with the
yes,
protagonist, and she's pregnant, but also the antagonist is a female. So that was a mind blower right there. No males whatsoever in that film. Two actresses going at it, a battle of wits.
such a great film. I highly recommend watching that. If anybody listening has not seen that yet, they need to see that film. Another film that I saw a long time ago, which I don't, if I don't really recall the film that much, then I probably didn't care for it. But Ken, have you ever seen that film called Grace about that baby?
No, I have not seen that film. Not at all.
Well, if I don't remember it, then I guess that's a sign of stay the hell away from it. So, yeah. Well, what are your thoughts on even the TV shows, Ken, that have that female protagonist, or the 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 mixture between like the female and male protagonist? How do you feel about that? Even
Shoot, I can't even recall the last time I sat down and watched a TV show. Uh, but the one that pops into my head is the Sabrina series, which is doing great, by the way, and they're showcasing a female role there. but they're showing her in a different light than the sitcom that once aired years back. And I think this is a proper light and is a proper time to release that type of image of a girl. But once again, if you look at that series, you could also see that she's being oppressed. It seems primarily to be with males as well. And even though you have that message of magic, dark magic, it has the same overtones, in my opinion. I'm trying to think of any other show. Boy, maybe I should sit down and watch more TV.
Well, as long as you're interested in the film, I mean the TV show, series, whatever. Well, here's another example, or a couple of examples. So we got that new Shutter series out for the first season. It's called A Discovery of Witches, which is actually based off of a book, and that has that whole female protagonist and a male protagonist in a way. So it's interesting how this is played out too, but at the same time, it's almost as if we've seen it before. And the reason why I say that is because look at what was it, HBO True Blood, how that came into
Right,
play. We had the
right,
female and the male protagonist going on yet again with that.
right.
So
Yeah, I remember True Blood. That was
uh,
more like a soap opera
porno.
with vampires and werewolves.
It was like Twilight, but just with adults.
Right. Exactly, exactly.
Oh man,
Yeah,
so horrible. But I mean, I didn't mind it at first. I liked the first two seasons, and then from season 3 and on, yeah, just no. I don't even
right.
remember what season they left off on, and I don't even remember the season that I even said, "All right, this is my last season." So I, I
Right,
don't
right.
remember.
But if you look at the other film genres, more particular the Marvel films and action films, we've seen that they're taking a page out of the horror playbook and putting women in strong lead roles. uh, Atomic Blonde. You have also these other films that the female is a spy or bodyguard, and she has to save the day or stop a missile from detonating or something that you would usually associate with Arnold Schwarzenegger or Chuck Norris. Now you see in action films where the women are doing that. And hey, horror has been doing it for years. I think we're one step ahead of all the genres here, but we don't get the recognition we deserve for some strange reason. I guess people just assume the horror genre is just blood, gore, and cheap scares, and that's not the case. There's so much good
There's so much
talented.
more than what
Oh, there's so much more involved with that.
than yeah. And to touch on some titles that you just mentioned, what about let's go into like the Canadian film there, Darken. That has a strong protagonist world, lady that you know starts off into the real world and then becomes one within the world around her with Darken, and
Right, right.
that had a couple strong female protagonists in it. Actually, it was a protagonist and um, antagonist, so it
Right.
worked out that way as well.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think there is a good marriage between horror, thriller, and sci-fi. A very good marriage. I think they all parallel complement each other one way or another. Because without the alien in the movie, it's alien. It's a monster, and the monster. Hello, now you could classify it as sci-fi and horror. But for Darken, yeah, I agree. That really showcases the female strong leads, antagonists, and I think being a female antagonist or a male antagonist is much more work as an actor. I think, in my opinion, you have to convince the audience to really hate your guts to the point that they want to see you dead. That takes more work than you the good guy or gal trying to save the day and everybody's rooting for you.
That is true. That is true. Now, have you gotten a chance, Ken, to see Bird Box yet?
I have not seen Bird Box. I've seen bits and pieces of it because my wife was watching it and I kept walking inside the room. So I know how it ends and I know the middle part with John Malkovich that they were all together in this house somehow, but I haven't seen it from beginning to end.
Well, from what you could see, did you feel she was a strong female protagonist, or do you feel like she was watered down per se? You know what I'm trying to say?
No, I think her role in that film parallels the role of the male protagonist in the film The Mist, because The Mist and Bird Box are equally the same thing, but they just change stuff around. But here you have she's the female version of that lead character, 100%.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I kind of watched it the other night with Tessa because she was trying to make notes and questions for uh the next episode too for that. But it's it from what I could see, I kind of wanted to slap her around a couple times, but at the same time, I understand what she was trying to do too. She was trying to be that protective mother, but
Right.
she also was that really stone cold face type attitude, if that makes sense. Like there was no such thing as a bedtime story. There was no such thing as hope at first. Like, it was just like, this is it. This is what you got to do to survive. And if you don't, you're going to die. And it's just like, okay, well, can we at least maybe sing about trees and birds singing rather than it's 9 o'clock, no story, time to go to bed. It's like, these are kids. Like, kids want to have the kid moment per se. So,
Right.
and then at the very end, as you probably saw, Ken. I mean, look at what the mother did when she got to the ending with boy and girl, as she named them before the ending, and it's just like really, like now you're gonna lighten up and do it, like, and just jeez, now you're gonna actually portray that real mother figure versus the protector, I guess, per se. Like, you know what I mean? Like, oh my goodness.
Right.
Um, oh God. Yeah, but I mean, the evolution of the female roles I think, have definitely gone up, I should say, for sure, within the last decade, if not more. I think it's just finding that right story that I know we talked about it before. What if a male did this role instead of a female? Or what if we swapped this male role and put it as a female?
Right. Which they did, of course, in the remake of The Thing not so long ago. I saw it on TV. I was like, oh, okay. I thought it was the John Carpenter version, but it wasn't. It was the updated version with the CGI creature,
Yeah.
which I didn't appreciate. But I said, wait a second. I just noticed it. I think that was the second time I watched the film. I said, whoa, they changed the lead role. They put a female in the lead role instead of what's his name, Snake Plissken, that actor who plays Snake Plissken. Anyway, yeah, it was a surprise to me. I didn't notice that, but it didn't work out. The chemistry of the whole film just it fell flat and it had no substance whatsoever. So
Well, look
at
at
times
well,
it
look at
doesn't work out. I think Hollywood does
exactly.
it.
Yeah, exactly. But look at the original film called "Let the Right One In," and then look at
Right.
the remade film called Let Me In. They changed the main character around. So in the original, we got the female girl, and then in the new one here, Let Me In, we actually got a male now, a male boy, I should say. So, I mean, I haven't watched Let Me In because I love Let the Right One In, so I can't really say too much because when I heard that they turned the main character into a male, I just really could not see that working. Just because, as we see in the original film with the father that is literally doing everything he can as a father figure to his daughter, who is a vampire, to get her blood and try to keep her away from the outside world. Where I don't know how they do it with this, and it doesn't even feel natural. So I don't know. I just didn't feel like that switch really was the best decision.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Hollywood just fucks shit up, and
They
that's what
always do.
yeah. I state that once again. They create horror films mostly for the cash grabs, PG-13 for general
Mm-hmm.
audiences. I remember in the last topic with our guest, you guys were discussing the Blockbuster, going to Blockbuster, picking up the videos, and he had mentioned that now kids can access movies on the internet, and it's not like before that we had to sneak into the movie theaters with an adult or go to Blockbuster. And that's what's missing right now. That is what's missing. Just showcasing some areas of controversy and have the female form emerge superior from that controversy. Sure, you could release a film like Wonder Woman, but that's too peachy dory. Yeah, that doesn't quite cut it, especially if you want to showcase tribulations and things that are raw in nature that we associate in our everyday life.
Exactly. I mean, we just don't get um, that feeling of sensation anymore because I mean, I don't know about you, Ken, but I mean, like I was saying in that last topic, is like I love going into Blockbuster every weekend or whenever I got paid and get 4 movies to watch throughout the weekend, if not more, really, because sometimes maybe I'll go back Saturday and rent a couple more for Saturday night. It was a fun
Right.
time, and nowadays, with the way streaming is and everything else, where it comes to what's the word I'm looking for? As we were really talking about, like Amazon pulling stuff, it doesn't really feel the same, especially when you can watch a movie that is being streamed, right? And then we don't have it streamed, if you know what I'm trying to get at. So JR was even saying himself, at any point in time they can take away down everything and completely screw everybody over. And we can almost see that too, where I mentioned it a long time ago, I believe, in a episode where I said something about physical versus digital, and that was, well, at least with a physical copy, I can grab it and watch it whenever. But look at a digital one. A digital can get pulled at any point in time, and then I may not be able to watch it again. And then what? I'm out of what, $20, if not more.
Mm. Yeah, it's a sad time.
It really
And
is. It really is a sad time.
yeah, so
And
true.
that's why I just really hope that that the physical media doesn't completely go dead, because I personally would love to hold my copies. I really don't like supporting digital unless I really have to. I'll only rent, let's put it that way. But there is a few titles that I will make exception for to buy for digital.
Right, right. And to jump on the topic here, I think we've seen the evolution of women because we are seeing that women are influencing horror more so now than they were before. So we have more horror screenwriters now that are really adapting how the female should be portrayed. Not the damsel in distress, not the bimbo tripping in the woods, someone strong. And also female directors creating film, even if the female is not in the lead, the secondary characters and third characters are well suited for a female because we have the director and she has an eye on how these characters should be portrayed. The- all of that comes into one big mix, and I can't wait to see the next slate of horror films now. Especially, hey, we got the Suska sisters recreating, rebooting the film, uh, the that classic film. Shit, the name escapes my head right at this moment, but I can't wait to watch that one.
Do you know what it's about or anything?
Yeah, I'm gonna search on IMDb because I can't believe I just forgot that movie. And I was just looking at the still of that film.
Interesting. Speaking of movies being remade, I
Oh,
mean,
Rabid. There you go. Rabid. And if you haven't seen Rabid, Rabid has a female antagonist. I think she's the antagonist. But the version that the Suska sisters are spinning, it has a social commentary that has to do with how far are you willing to go to beautify yourself. Yeah,
hmm,
there's a story there about someone having an accident. Yeah, but it could also parallel a lot of women who see themselves in a mirror. Either they're overweight and they want to be slim, or they're slim and they want to be slimmer, or they just buy too much makeup to make themselves prettier. I think this new Rabbit remake is going to showcase that aspect of modern society.
hmm. Well, that's like, I really hope that it's not in production anymore. Is the fucking WWE version of Coldplay. I really don't want to see that. And I mean, come on, WWE. I mean, get the fuck out of here. I mean, what fucking movie did they do? See No Evil or with Kane or whatever? Like, what the hell was that movie?
I think they didn't they get two films out of that one. Yeah,
They
hey,
did.
but you gotta admit they're thinking outside the box. Yeah, they are thinking outside the box. Gotta give them credit for doing that at least.
I will always give them credit for that. Yes. But in this case, instead of the box, it should be the ring. Oh,
Uh,
jeez, I completely
wow, you just
butchered
had
that
to go
one.
there.
I probably just butchered
Wow.
that, but whatever. But then again, look at okay, so speaking of like female protagonists that have two females being like a strong role or whatever, let's look at the horrible remake of Martyrs for the US version. They
Right.
actually turned that into like a like a weird two female protagonists slash garbage slash whatever. What the fuck am I watching film? Really? I mean, God.
Right. Right. And you know why it didn't work? Because they subtracted, as I keep saying, Hollywood subtracted the controversy in that film. Everything
And they censored it.
everything in the original. Of course, they watered it down. No, you cannot take away that aspect of the story. That is so much part of the female empowerment aspect of that story. You can't remove it. And look what happened. They try to make it a I don't know what the hell they were thinking. It was so low key that I don't. They didn't even promote the picture. They just released it very silently. I think they were embarrassed by it.
Yes. Yeah. Oh man. And I just watched the director of the original Martyrs' latest film that came out last year called Incident in the Ghostland. That is an interesting, another fucked up film by him. And he that type of director that will literally show the beatings of a weak female that then turned into a strong female. And that's another thing that we started to see lately. I want to say, didn't Wrong Turn do something like that, Ken?
Wrong turn. Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to remember the film. Uh,
If it wasn't
I
Wrong
think
Turn, maybe it would Joyride? No, wait.
one of those films. Wait, Wrong Turn wasn't Wrong Turn the one with the inbred family, cannibal family. I think that
Correct.
was Wrong Turn.
Yep.
Yeah,
And then we also got like Rest Stop.
right, right. Of course, all of those films have a good female. One of my favorites of Your Next female
Yes.
role, right
Yes.
there.
That's a
A
great one.
low key film, very low key. She wasn't nothing strong, nothing out of the ordinary. She wasn't in space. A regular average girl who took it upon herself to seriously kick ass when she needed to. That was great. It worked for the film. I'm glad there was no sequel, no reboot, nothing. That's good. Keep it that way. Fine.
Agreed. Agreed.
Even the strangers. Look at the strangers. There's two female antagonists in that film, one male, but the females are just as deadly as the males, and you gotta keep an eye out for them because you think they're just because their masks look less intimidating. No, they're quite much deadly.
Yes. Yes. And going back to High Tension real quick, she started out as a pretty simple-minded weakling, but then when they really pushed her over that edge, man, whoo, that revenge scene, oh man, she was almost like Jamie Lee Curtis. She was fucking prepared. We put it that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm just glad that the evolution has come now. Sure, it's a couple of decades late, but hey, better late than never. And you have strong female leads now, more so than I can't wait if they make a female predator or let's say what female predator. That's about it.
They
That's
talked
more.
about a female predator, but it always goes back to, well, we don't know how it's gonna work because the whole, does the predator female have to have, a chest per se, and then is that gonna spark the whole staring at the chest stuff? Like what the hell? Like I remember reading something about it. It was really interesting, but it would be cool to see a female predator, but they definitely would have to get it right with the design. But then again, look at all these people can create the practical effects and mask and stuff where we have seen people create female predators.
Right, right. Hey, with the advancements of females in mixed martial arts, I'm sure they could get a female mixed martial artist for that role because it's not a speaking role and nobody's going to see her face. But hey, you want to showcase some really good moves, fight combat. I would say that's the good way to go. And just get the hey, these predators got to multiply from somewhere. It's not just a planet all males. How would that work?
It could be
It
worse, I
doesn't work.
guess. Yeah, that is true. Ah, any final words about this, Ken? Because I mean, unless you have anything else you need to add, I mean, otherwise, I think we're pretty much wrapping up on it, right?
My final thought is that I love the strong female lead, the final girl, if you will. It's a tattoo that I have on my forearm, and it's a tribute to the strong female leads in horror cinema, sci-fi thrillers. I just love that. It is the centerpiece, the core of all horror films. And the tattoo that I have is a tribute to the character from Your Next. And there's another film also, which unfortunately did not get its release. It's an animated film. I was hoping we would get to see that. It started with William Shatner as well, but it didn't materialize for some reason. I think it was budget wise, but that's a topic for another story. So that's my final thoughts.
And I'm gonna have to 100% agree with you too. But it is nice to see films adapting within the switcheroo from male protagonist to female protagonist because, like I said, females can outlive us males because of our stupid shit that we can think of. And I can already give one example. Have you ever seen the meme, Ken, where it's a guy trying to bounce a ladder from the top of the second floor to trying to change the goddamn light bulb? You ever seen that one?
No, 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 I
Oh
haven't
my
seen.
god. But just put it this way, if I ever see that image again, I'll send it your way.
Oh
but
gosh.
but this image that I'm talking about definitely shows why ladies will outlive us males for sure. And on that note, thank you so much, Ken, for joining. Tristan was here. I think he fell asleep during the first conversation or something happened. I don't know. He put in one question and then he went bye bye.
Oh wow. The mystery deepens. What happened to Tristan?
He probably got abducted by aliens. Oh, shit. We're
Oh,
next,
Ava
Ken.
Probe.
He's going to be the next one to get to show up in California.
Oh, wow. That's wow. He's gonna have some stories to say.
Oh, yeah. But thank you so much, Ken, for joining. And like always, where can we find DK Mag?
Well, DK Mag is across all major podcast platforms. You could catch our podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. And not only that, we have two podcasts. DK Mag Horror Entertainment News Podcast. We have DK Mag Sessions. And we also have audio articles, which is called DK Mag Segments. And you could find that as well. And that is not a podcast, that is an audio accompaniment to each article that we provide on our website. And you can find our website at dkmag.com, DECAYMAG.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ken. And it's always a pleasure to join your show, too. And we just did one with you last weekend, right? And it was some very interesting topics going on there. We had the Ghostbusters 3 announcement. We had a couple trailer reactions. And what was the other one?
And we
Drawing a
had
brain.
exclusive interviews, one with Jamie Bernadette, who's such an influence on independent horror, and also Jason Kellerman. He has an upcoming film. It's currently doing the film festival rounds right now, but it would be releasing in February. It's called Hunter. No female lead in that one, unfortunately. But we have mix of martial arts, action, and I think there's vampires. But that's my theory. It may be a vampire movie. I'm thinking it may be.
Well, that's always good, and I mean, you're staying busy. I mean, look at that. Oh man, look at the episode that we did, and you finally just released it. What, like a week after? What was that?
Yeah, yeah. I have so many podcasts to produce. It's not funny. It's and that plus writing and networking. That's what we were just discussing earlier. It's you only have 24 hours in a day. Sometimes I'm up 24 hours just networking, cleaning the email, and doing everything. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Well, if February brings what January brought us to the table for ours, even I might need to start taking energy shots at night just to clean up my emails too and planning and stuff like that. So it's been a busy month for us too. And it's kind of weird saying that because we had, like I said, and even in our about us section we have it stating that we every time there was a 12 months we kind of took a break or something, and then we had personal issues come about just as some people were starting to email us again, and then for some weird reason this month was just crazy. We just had emails coming in, and it's just like, holy crap. So it's a nice little change, I will at least say that. So I think we'll be all set for February pretty soon. So pretty soon I'm going to be needing to tell people, well, can this wait till March?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know about you, Ken. I mean, I know, have you ever had to turn people down or at least tell them, like,
No,
hey, can you wait?
never, never.
Yeah, see,
This
I
is the
don't
first
turn people
time.
down either.
This is the first time I'm late with the podcast, so I guess it's the first time for everything. And then once I catch up, it's not going to happen ever again. That's it.
Well, once again, Ken, thank you so much for talking with me. Like I said, I don't know what the hell happened with Tristan, but I'd like to have seen, or, well, maybe not seen, but have heard what his thoughts were about his topic that he wanted to bring us tonight, which was about how reboots are getting into the way of things, because that's pretty much all we heard throughout January was reboot this, reboot that. But maybe we can have his topic discussed on the next roundtable that we try to do. But until then, guys, I was Paul Dosky, and Tristan Knott was here, but I think he got abducted by aliens, and next thing we know, we're gonna hear he's in California. But until next time, guys, as always, stay scary.